Hi, this is Jenna.
Hi, and I'm Heather.
And this is Conspiracies Unlocked. We are going to proceed with the John Titor time traveling adventure story, part 2. And this, as a little recap, John Titor was supposedly the conspiracy is that he was a time traveler from the year 2036. And he came to the year 2000 to 2001, and he was talking on message boards and discussion boards online and telling people that he was from this other year, telling them that he had to go back to the year 1976 to get an IBM 5100 computer modem because they needed it in the future. And we're just kind of going through all of the things and the claims that he made throughout his through all of his discussions on all the discussion boards, and some of them really did come true, we're finding, and some things were kind of off or did not come true at all. So we're gonna pick up where we kind of left off. This is November 25th, 2000. He said, "On my world line, it is known that the 5100 series is capable of reading all the IBM code written before the widespread use of APL and BASIC. Unfortunately, there are none left that anyone can find on my world line." So he just that's the whole point of him coming, is to get this modem, and he'll explain it more in depth. So the way that he writes is he just gives little snippets, and every time that he talks about it again, he will give you a little bit more information, because there's several people in these discussion boards that just keep asking him questions over and over again because they didn't know that it was asked previously or whatever reason. And so sometimes he gets irritated. They get into a fight later on. Yeah. It's interesting.
that I can see that would be tiresome if people are repeating the same questions over and over again. You would just get to where you would just ignore it and just continue on.
Yeah, exactly. So, and sometimes he just, so he bounces around a lot because of the different questions that are being asked. So he kind of goes everywhere, because then he goes on to talk about CJD disease, which is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. And this is one of the main predictions that people talk about when they speak of John Titor and what he was saying. And he said, "No, I have not tried any fast food. Thinking about where the food came from, how it was shipped and treated absolutely terrifies me. I have tried to tell people about CJD disease, and it seems to be catching on in Europe." So people in Europe started to eat healthier.
So is that a disease from fast food?
Yeah,
or processed food.
Well, so apparently in his timeline, CJD is linked to fast food, and according to National Institute of Neurological Disorders, CJD is a rare, rapidly worsening brain disorder that causes unique changes in brain tissue and affects muscle coordination, thinking, and memory. There are about 350 cases per year in the U.S. CJD is caused by abnormal forms of proteins called prions. Proteins are long chains of amino acids that fold together into a unique shape or conformation to help a cell function in a particular way. The normal and harmless prion protein is found throughout the body, but is most abundant in the nervous system. So fast food is bad, and it's causing CJD, which is a real thing. And then he goes on answering questions about the Civil War that is set to happen on his timeline. And then he doesn't really even talk about that, but he more talks about the foods that are unsafe now. Somebody asks, can you tell us the foods that are unsafe now? Is there anything we can do to prepare for the war you are describing? Mm-hmm. So that's why he's going to talk about the Civil War and CJD. Yeah. And he said that he says, "I try to consolidate your questions into a basic list. I hope this helps. 1, do not eat or use products from any animal that is fed and eats parts of its own dead."
Ew.
So carnivore, I guess.
Well, its own, so that would be its form of cannibalism.
Yeah. Oh yeah, cannibal. That's what I meant, not carnivorism. Cannibalism.
So what animals will eat their own?
Won't pigs eat themselves? And cows, they'll feed them other beef.
Ooh.
I don't really know. Like, I think pigs, like in the mash and everything, and the whatever the pigs eat, I think there's certain animals that they feed their own meat to.
I did not know that.
I think that there are. It says, number 2 is do not kiss or have intimate relations with anyone you do not know. Number 3 is learn basic sanitation and water purification. 4, be comfortable around firearms. Learn to shoot and clean a gun.
That's a good one.
5, get a good first aid kit and learn to use it. 6, find 5 people within 100 miles that you trust with your life and stay in contact with them. 7, get a copy of the U.S. Constitution and read it. He kind of does some like jokey jokes in here. Number 8, eat less. Number 9, get a bicycle and 2 sets of spare tires. Ride it 10 miles a week.
Oh yeah, you gotta be strong.
10, consider what you would bring with you if you had to leave your home in 10 minutes and never return. So this is like how to prepare for the Civil War that happens on his timeline that never happened here yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense because you need to be strong. You should have a go bag. You can just grab in 10 minutes. It has all of your documents in it. Passport, identification, ammo, food rations, MRIs, like whatever.
Yeah. So someone asks, what event started the war? Can it be stopped? And he says the war is a result of faulty politics and desperation from Western leadership during the U.S. Civil War. And he says, yes, I suppose you could stop it. Which I feel like we're like headed towards that direction anyways, like a civil war, like with the upcoming elections and everything. And I say it later on, but I'll say it now too, that I think that some of his, because he's on a different timeline than us, like, and it goes into detail of all the different timelines too, that like, it goes into detail how it all works. But I will say that some of his predictions, I think they just might like be 10 years off or 20 years off, but they seem to be coming into fruition now.
Oh, wow.
What is the entertainment industry like in 2036?
Demonic.
He says that they can play their own music. It's not limp synced. It's not computer generated. It's just real people playing now. So they go back to like the basics. And they say, then he says, again, entertainment is less centralized. There are movies, quote unquote, on TV, but everything is distributed over the internet and more people produce their own shows.
Oh, like a podcast.
Yeah, or like YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube.
Instagram, TikTok, all these things, like they're like little short episodes of, you know. And what's interesting is that
they're not syndicated.
Yeah. And they're not produced by ABC and they're not on TV. They're on the internet platform. They're on a platform, not like a big production company that, you know. So what I find interesting is that this was said in the year 2000. Oh, YouTube wasn't there. There was nothing like having our own, any like TV show that wasn't even.
MySpace, I think.
Nope, MySpace wasn't even there.
In 2000?
Yeah. MySpace didn't come up until 2003.
Okay, so
there was like nothing, and reality TV wasn't even there other than The Real World on MTV. So he is kind of spot on with us all doing our own episodes and making our own entertainment, more or less.
True, yeah.
Without having movie stars and without having Hollyweird. Like we are Hollywood. Yeah. You know, we are the stars of our own shows now instead of. But I just thought that it was really interesting because if you go back to the year 2000 and your like wildest imagination, would you ever think that there would be no Hollywood and that we would all be doing our own TV shows?
Well, a lot of Hollywood is getting canceled right now with like the Me Too movement and all different things coming out and into the light, that people are not supporting the industry as much, the entertainment industry as much as they used to, because they're not happy with the way that it is.
But he predicted this
happening to children and all different things.
He predicted this in 2000. So whether he is a real-time traveler or not, the person who is responsible for these posts predicted it in the year 2000.
So like the time travel stuff could be bullshit. We don't know.
But whoever was posting it knows, like,
his predictions still came forward.
Yeah.
Or not came forward, but came to be.
So John,
accurate. Some of them.
Yeah. They did. Or even if they didn't yet, they seem to be moving in that way. So he also talks a lot about work and prejudice, saying that our prejudice is not the same as his. He said that people are more focused on skin color and things like that in our reality, but out in his reality, on his timeline back in 2036, they're more worried about surviving. So it's less about the skin color of being prejudiced towards skin color. It's more prejudice about whether you are working or not. Like, what are you contributing to the society?
So if you're not contributing, you're going to be ostracized.
Yeah, people will be looked down on if they're not working and pulling their weight. He does say that they take care of orphans and their elderly, and that seems like super nice to take care of like those people.
Yeah.
And then
there would be a lot of orphans. Because if there's a war, civil war, there'd be a lot of death and there'd be a lot of orphans.
Yeah, and then he said that there's no big hospitals. Doctors will make house calls like they used to do. Mm-hmm. And if you got like a serious sickness, you would just die. It's not about, they didn't really medicate too much. It's more like, well, it's you dying of old age. They're not trying to medicate you and keep you like on life support and try to make you immortal or anything. When it's your time, bye. And so they don't really, it's more about like comfort and just, and they'll fix a broken foot or a broken leg or something like that. But if you're just like seriously like sick, then you're just gonna die. They won't.
It's so funny that we're talking about like predictions about like mortality, basically, because I just saw a reel or a short or something on somewhere. Social media, I'll have to find it, and it is a scientist talking about how people are going to be able to live to 500 years old.
Yeah,
and like that's their prediction based on the way that science and medicine
and everything
is moving along.
Yeah,
but it's like 500 years old. Even if your brain is like you're still alive, I feel like how strong is your body going to be at 500 years? Like, do you want to be alive for 500 years?
You'd probably have new parts. Like, you know how they can give you, like, a new hip? Like, my dad had got a new hip.
Oh, yeah.
So you would probably end up with new parts eventually.
They'd have to give you all new skin and everything. Like,
it was...
Like,
skin
elderly skin is very thin. If you barely, like, bump it, it, like, will open and bleed. So, like... Can you imagine 500-year-old? That's like an 80-year-old skin.
They would probably give you like protective like skin layers. It will probably be skin grafts, because I know that when you get for burn victims, they have skin graft things, and it's like fake skin that melts to their body. Yeah, and it's like perforated like fake skin. We've at my job we made the skin before. We made the rollers that make the skin. Yeah. Like the machine, the perforated stuff.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've definitely heard of it, but it's just...
So, like, I've seen it in action, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what's going to go, and then it will conform to the body and eventually, like, be part of you again.
It's just... I don't know.
So if that's happening now, imagine in 100 years what would be,
500 years old is just...
Yeah, I don't want to.
I don't want to be 500.
Anyways, so it's interesting that he talks about how they're not prejudiced towards skin color like we are here. And what's interesting is that in the year 2000, there wasn't, I don't know, I didn't see too much prejudice, or there wasn't a big deal about skin color then. It was like we moved past it, and then in like 2010, 2008, like when Obama came into office, then all of a sudden it came back again, the whole skin color issue. I don't know, because I grew up in a very like white neighborhood, so I don't know for sure, and I'm not a person of color, so I know that there's things that they go through that I wouldn't have any idea of. So, but that's just how I felt it was. I didn't really notice any difference until later. So it's interesting that he's saying like, oh yeah, back in this time period, we're all like worried about skin color and stuff like that, when they aren't. They don't care what color you are. They just want you to be working. And if you don't work, then you don't get help. So it's almost like socialism, where like everybody works together you know, and then you get your like ration.
Oh yeah, like the depression, everybody had rations.
Yeah, so it's like that. Like you get your little bit, and then if you really aren't working, then they'll boot you out of the community.
Oh wow.
They'll actually like boot you. So December 13th, 2000, he actually talks about Russia. And he says, I think Russia is still very likely to attack the United States with nuclear weapons. It's hard to imagine being here to see it. You are also correct, but I want to add a twist to your thinking. Russia's enemy in the United States is not you, the average person. Russia's enemy is the United States government. So, Russia's a big deal in our current news, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a big deal in 2000 for him to say all of that. Was it? Do you remember? Because you were a little bit older. We weren't scared of Russia then, were we? Like,
no,
we remember the Russians are coming. Oh my god.
And I was at an age where I didn't really care about politics or follow politics at all. But I know that right now that there are ships in getting very close to like the America territory.
Yeah.
And we did a post about that on our TikTok, so you guys can go back and look at that. But it is kind of coming full circle with him saying that. Yeah,
exactly. So he then talks about how he actually is here to go back to 1975, right before he originally arrived to get back to his own timeline in 2036. He has already altered this timeline and will be lost and unable to get back to his timeline unless he goes back to a time before, like, he fucked with the timeline. So he has to go back. So he has to just, like, go back for, like, a second. Like, just before. It's like the butterfly effect. So in this timeline, our podcast would not have this episode because he would never have gone to the year 2000. So our 2036 and his 2036 timelines are different. Even just slightly different, nevertheless, like, they're not the same. So there's several different timelines, like the multiverse, you know, all that stuff, always going.
Yeah.
Simultaneously. So previously he had been asked about Arab and Jewish communities in the Middle East and their wars with each other. And he has touched on it a bit, but with everything occurring in Israel right now, I thought that this next part was pretty interesting. Someone asked him, does the current relationship between Arabs and Jews have anything to do with the coming war? And he said, real disruptions in world events begin with the destabilization of the West as a result of degrading U.S. foreign policy and consistency. This becomes apparent around 2004 as civil unrest develops near the next presidential election. The Jewish population in Israel is not prepared for a true offensive war. They are prepared for the ultimate defense. Wavering Western support for Israel is what gives Israel's neighbors the confidence to attack. The last resort for a defensive Israel and its offensive Arab neighbors is to use weapons of mass destruction. In the grand scheme of things, the war in the Middle East is part of what's to come, not the cause. So, what was interesting about that is that even though this didn't happen in 2004, it does seem to be happening with the 2020 elections, with these upcoming elections. It seems more like that in our timeline, we're just like I said, it seems like it's all like 10, 15 years off.
Yeah, because right now with whole Israel and Gaza.
And our support of them and all of that, it's pretty much saying, and it's saying that it's because of U.S. foreign policy and consistency of like and the degrading.
And U.S. is backing, like the U.S. government is backing Israel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this is saying. So it's very interesting that whoever this person is, whether time traveler or not, he is like real. Like he's not real, but like these things are happening.
Yeah.
But at the same time, history does repeat itself. So I'm sure that maybe that this has happened 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and they know that it's going to happen again. But just to know who it's happening with Israel, you know? So then he moves on and talks about weather modification.
Wow.
Yeah, he kind of goes all over the place.
That's funny because everything so far that he has mentioned, it is happening
in
some way or another, part of it, or it's coming true.
Yeah, and so some of this stuff I did try to like go back to see like, oh, when did they first start talking about weather modification? When did they first, to try to see if maybe he's just predicting things that were already starting to happen.
Well, weather modification did start after World War II.
Yes, and he talks about HARP too.
Yeah, so that has been going on for a while. But the way that they've been achieving it and what they've been doing has been different because things have progressed over time.
Yeah, so he says, so the question lists, like the questions that were given to him, lists just a number of paranormal conspiracy theories, and then asks about weather control in the year 2036. And he says, in regards to all this, I must admit I'm unfamiliar with most of what you have asked here. I am aware of the HARP system, but I don't know how they would control weather with it.
Okay.
Which HARP is weather control, isn't it?
HARP is not necessarily weather control. HARP can be used for a lot of different things, but HARP is what they were sending the iodized particles into the air, and it does modify weather, but it also can send out signals that can be picked up through radio frequencies. So they're also saying, and they can also use HARP to project images in the sky, and they can manipulate a lot of different things with HARP.
So I'm wondering,
so it's not necessarily only weather modification, but maybe he just doesn't know much about HARP. I don't know when HARP started. I'd have to go back to our HARP episode.
Yeah, no, I thought that it was in the 30s or 40s. I thought it was like a long time ago.
I don't remember when HARP started.
Yeah.
I really feel like I should know that because we did.
You did you have so much knowledge on it when we've referred back to it. That's why I think that it was like the 30s or 40s when it happened, like maybe after World War II or something.
We'll have to put it like in the show notes exactly when it started, just to be like informed. But I can't recall right now.
So on December 30th, 2000, he even talks about CERN, CERN, CERN. There are numerous experiments going on at CERN. In order for them to make a black hole, they would have to travel faster than light. I'm pretty sure they have a number of experiments going on at the same time at CERN. The one I'm referring to involves very high energies using protons. From my historical perspective on my world line, I do recall the issue was a point of contention about 18 months ago or so. So that would be 18 months in his time, so that would be 2032 in our time, or 2034 in our time.
So CERN is in Sweden, I believe.
Yes.
And it is a particle collider. And they collide atoms and particles together to try to create like black holes and different things and study.
Yeah,
that's what they do, and they found what they call the God particle.
So he talks more about it. Like, I really wish that we had done our like CERN episode already, because I would have more information on everything that he is saying. Mm-hmm. But he goes on to say there were some scientists who thought the experiments were too dangerous to try. The time travel I refer to does not require faster than light travel, and due to multiple world reality, paradoxes do not occur. Natural time machines do exist.
Oh, yeah, like portals.
Yeah. I've never claimed to be a physicist or an expert on what the CERN laboratory is doing at any given moment, so I feel it is pointless to argue about what they may be doing in the future, what breakthroughs they will or might have. My comment about the CERN lab are in reference to the particle accelerators in general and other questions that have come up in the past. The major physics breakthrough for controlled gravity distortion does happen at CERN in your future. Heck, we haven't even touched on Z-field compression yet.
I don't know what Z-field compression is.
I wonder
I
wonder if that is, I tried to look it up, but I wonder if that is something he just made up. If this is not a real time traveler, I wonder if that's just something that the poster made up.
Yeah, I haven't heard Z-field compression yet, but I have heard.
See, we would know if we had already done our CERN episode, and we were gonna do that right after the eclipse, and we never did it. We suck.
I think that we need to do a CERN episode now, but I do know that CERN they are studying the particle. It's all about, they collide particles and shit.
Are they trying to do time travel with it?
Probably, but I think what people say with CERN is that every time they run CERN and they do experiments with CERN, people say that is what causes the shift in the timeline, and that's where we get the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
So people attribute that to CERN. So they'll do their particle collision studies or whatever, experiments, and then somehow it skews our timeline because it's almost like putting us on a different dimensional path or a different like timeline, or I don't know what the word is.
It's almost like our timeline ends, so
and then they do their thing, and then it
merges two timelines together.
It's like almost like it opens a little portal and it shifts or like we're on a path and then it opens a split in the road, and then we go this way.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't know if it's true, but that's where people say that the Mandela effect is that every time they do CERN, they're like, oh, they're fucking with the timeline again. Yeah. And that's why we have the Mandela effect. Now we have these new memories and old memories. Yeah. Of what things were and are.
So Titor goes back to explaining why he needs the IBM 5100 computer. He says in 2036 it was discovered, or at least known after testing, that the 5100 computer was capable of reading and changing all of the legacy code written by IBM before the release of that system, and still be able to create new code in APL and BASIC. That is the reason we need it in 2036. However, IBM never published that information because it would have probably destroyed a large part of their business infrastructure in the early 70s. In fact, I would bet the engineers were probably told to keep their mouths shut.
Oh, sure. Yeah, they have to sign NDAs and stuff. There's no way.
Therefore, if I were not here now telling you this, that information would not be discovered for another 36 years. Yet, I would bet there is someone out there who can do research and discover I am telling the truth. There must be an old IBM engineer out there someplace that worked on the 5100. They just might not have ever asked if I hadn't pointed it out. And then he says that there are people in the year 2036 who do not believe in time travel, even though he's saying he is time traveling.
I find that hard to believe because I feel like pretty much the general population believes that there's a possibility of time travel.
Yeah. But it's weird that his own people don't believe. It's weird that even though it's happening,
I mean, it is kind of far-fetched. How is that possible? Yeah. It's, out of our scope of, knowledge, but... I mean, anything's possible.
So this is interesting. On January 5th, 2001, he goes more into detail about what life is like in 2036. He says that in 2036, community life is a bit different. People are valued and judged based on their contribution and worth. Work is organized around the family, and the value of that work is assessed inside of the community. Most communities range in size from 1,000 to 4,000 people. If a family wanted to move from one community to another, or if a son or daughter want to move to another community, they must apply and be interviewed by that community's leadership council. During this process, the family or individual is evaluated as to whether or not the work or skill they have is required or necessary to that individual community. So, if they already had a town doctor, then they'd be like, well, do we really need another town doctor? I think we're good. Thanks. Go back to wherever you came from. Anyways, he goes on, once accepted, the family or individuals is expected to uphold their end of the work and support the community. If they don't, the community stops supporting them and they are forced to change their attitude or move away from the community.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like somebody like a doctor would be very valuable because they probably have few doctors.
Yeah, because they didn't go to school or anything. They don't have universities anymore.
And they probably only have, they wouldn't need more than one per town because it's move on to the next town. Maybe that one doesn't have a doctor. Yeah. So they have to spread them out.
And then he says that the family work we did was picking, sorting, and shipping oranges by sailboat up and down the coast of Florida. We were expected to produce a certain amount for the community and a certain amount for other communities as agreed to by our CLC, so the Community Leadership Council. In exchange, we received power, water, a certain amount of food, and other necessities that were produced inside our community.
Okay, so it's kind of like a barter system or like a trade.
Yeah, but it's kind of like communism, right? Isn't that communism or socialism or something? One of those isms where
it's just provided for.
Yeah, where everything is provided for. And,
but you have higher taxes usually in that situation.
Well, they don't even get paid. They get paid in food.
Yeah, I know. But they can still.
You don't even get paid. That's your higher tax is 100%.
Mm-hmm. Well, your ration is your payment.
Yeah.
So but maybe you wouldn't get as much ration.
And then you wouldn't ever be able to get a bigger house because everyone has the same house. Everyone gets the same ration. You can't buy more food.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So everything would be just everybody on government. Everybody would be equal, and it'd be everybody on government assistance pretty much. But you still have to go work, and you don't get paid, and you can't do anything fun.
But everything is covered, so you don't have to worry about being homeless or not having food.
As long as you worked.
As long as you worked. But they would probably make you work.
Yeah.
They just kick you out of the society if you didn't work.
Yeah.
Because it says that you would just get
booted. Yeah. But then the problem with that is that you'd never be able to go on vacation. You'd never be able to own like a quad. You would never be able to like go do anything fun like that.
It's like a dystopian world. They probably don't have quads.
Well, that's not fun. So you just get up, you work, you eat, you sleep, you get up, you work, you eat, you sleep. What's the point?
I don't know, but it's really making me think of George Orwell's 1984.
Right? So, January 9th, 2001, he gets the same type of answers like a bunch of times, and he lists what he will not say. And so he keeps doing this several times throughout the chat. So I'll just tell you the 3 things that he will not say. Number 1, I will not disclose any information that will cause someone to personally gain by its knowledge. This means no stock or sports tips. Number 2, I will not disclose any detailed information that would allow someone to avoid death by probability. This means no earthquake or bombing information. Number 3, I will not disclose any information that may compromise any future actions by individual people or threaten their family and well-being. So he's like, by him being here, he's fucking with our timeline. But he doesn't want to fuck with it anymore than just by him being here needs to.
The butterfly effect, right?
Yeah,
we talked about that in the last episode. If he discloses something, that might not happen, but something worse might happen.
Yeah, or who knows what could happen. Yeah. So he also then talks about the different types of government they have. And he says the reason the job of the president was split into an office of 5 has 4 main reasons. With 5 presidents, foreign policy is more consistent. Power shifting between the parties has less of an impact on the overall government. Individual strengths between presidents add to their strength of the overall office. And 1 president is elected for each major area in the United States. So it's pretty much just to be more like a stabilized government. So it's more.
So it's almost like governors.
Yeah.
Or the United States is not. It's split into 5, right?
Yeah.
So then there would be 5 governing
bodies.
So that, instead of being a governor, it would be 5 presidents.
Yeah. Previously, he had said that they were thinking of changing the flag from 50 stars to 5. And so that makes sense why he would say that, because I didn't understand why he said that before.
Like 5 states or
because of the 5 major areas. So.
Well, I guess they wouldn't be states. They're just territories.
Territories. Well,
5
and
territories.
the new U.S. capital is no longer Washington, D.C., but Omaha, Nebraska. During the Civil War, he said that everything went all wacky. And all the universities turned to forts. So, University of Florida was Fort Florida.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because
it would be like a bomb shelter.
Yeah.
It would be like a,
Yeah, it would just be used for war.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's then asked about other time travelers. And he was asked if there were others that would be on our timeline, with him. And he said the chances of that would be super slim because there are thousands, millions, billions of timelines all going. And as they move back in time, they don't know which timeline they're going to get. But the chance of them going...
Oh, they don't know which timeline they're going to get because it's depending on what portal opens.
I don't know. They just don't know. I don't. Well, they explain it more later. Just hold on.
Okay.
So he has expressed before that he was worried about getting back to his timeline. Like, he doesn't think he's going to go back to his timeline. That he thinks that there's
going to be trapped?
No, he's going to just go to a different timeline that's going to be divergent by like 0.01%. So only little things like Mandela effect. Only little things will be different.
Oh, okay.
So, like, this timeline was at most 2.5% off of his timeline. So the timeline that he came in 2001. He said it's so similar, but there are things that are not right. He says that it's impossible to send a message through time unless the message is like physically on the person traveling through time. So they have to like
tattoo it or something?
Physically deliver the message. And people seem to be like really upset with him in these discussion boards, and which is like super weird to me because who fucking cares? But like, you look at comments and stuff nowadays and people are just so vicious, and this was the very beginning of keyboard warriors and having a screen in front of your face. So people, I don't know. But anyways, in January 9th, 2001, he says that when time travel was discovered, there were many people who were against its development. However, once the true nature of time was realized, the resistance faded. Even if one world line was able to ban, kill, and stop all time travel, it would still continue in another timeline. However, the corollary is also true, and corollary describes a result that is the natural consequence of something else. So it says, take heart, on some world line you have succeeded and all the time travelers are dead by the hand of your followers, and thinking or talking about it is a crime. Because
thinking it's a crime?
On some
police.
On some sort of world line, because he's talking shit to all the fucking people who are talking shit to him about time. Like, you're fucking with Jesus and God and religion, and you're fucking with this, and you're fucking with everything.
Then you get into the Bible, but as soon as you said thinking, I'm thinking, thought police.
Yeah. So
George Orwell, 1984.
Then he goes back to say, perhaps we should all agree what we mean when we use the phrase time travel. We are all moving forward in time just by existing, and the effects of acceleration and gravity do slow time down for the observer, so the rest of the world seems to speed up around them. If we call this natural time travel, time-like trips on a single world line, then perhaps it really controlled time travel that you are after. Space-like trips on a single world line or traveling to alternate world lines. So he's in this, like, he just kind of just keeps repeating himself just about timeline and time travel and going back and forth. And he then goes on to say, with that, it may be then useful to separate the concept of controlled time travel into theory and practice. In theory, time travel was taken seriously by mainstream science when it discovered that Einstein's equations do indeed support the possibility of controlled time travel under special relativity. Since special relativity, under its current limitations, has been proved useful and accurate in predicting other physical phenomenon, it is widely believed that controlled time travel is also possible. So, and that was all from Einstein. Like, they needed Einstein's theories for it to work. Nearly all of the solutions that allow time travel and special relativity also have the annoying problem of crushing the time traveler in the wake of radiation and gravity. So there is an issue with some of the time traveling, like getting to where you can actually time travel. Like the time travelers can get crushed by the radiation and gravity and
crushed
stuff.
By the radiation.
Yeah. And so in his experience, so he says, in my experience, there's only one safe way to obtain controlled time travel, and that involves the safe properties of a Kerr singularity black hole. However, I do not discount the possibility of other methods, either physical or metaphysical. I'm just not sure I would bet my life on them without any math to back them up. So it's like, there's other ways to time travel. They're working on them, but you might die. He goes on to answer a few more questions about death, probably stemming from his previous conversation about allowing people to die from old age instead of just trying to medicate them to immortality. He does say this about death on his timeline from the future, that death is more part of our lives than it is yours, at least for now, and capital punishment is a reality.
Oh,
so
okay.
they will.
So they haven't with they haven't taken away.
Yeah, and so if you do bad shit, like, they really don't
Yeah.
give a fuck, you'll just die. So
Yeah.
they're more strict. And then he continues to address the negative and hostile comments, and he says, in the post that follows, I've tried to answer the latest questions directed at me, but I'm hoping you all may be able to add some insight into something I've noticed. In our attempt to communicate here, some of the comments on this board have become increasingly hostile and negative. I see the same type of interaction when I watch the news interview programs. The guise of productive interaction and communication is thwarted by illogical verbal attacks and misdirection. I understand why the news does it. They are trying to hold an audience by generating conflict. For a while, I thought that was the goal here too, but it appears that anger and conflict is being created on this site to cause genuine harm and pain. It's hard for me to believe that this is being done on purpose, so I have concluded I simply do not understand some hidden element of your collective social interaction. On the other hand, if it's being done for no reason, I would understand a little better how people in this time could accomplish so much and yet be so vulnerable to their emotions and fears. I think it was Thomas Jefferson who believed that the only way to sway opinion was through calm, respectful, intelligent conversation. Whether I'm a time traveler or not, I suppose there are numerous ways to view my story. But by the nature of the communication medium, I believe it's impossible to prove. Therefore, it's impossible to believe. I agree that conversation spurs ideas. If I'm not a time traveler, then perhaps the seemingly disjointed statements I make will actually create the idea in one of you that leads to real time travel. But yeah, so he's like, what the fuck? Like, why is everybody attacking me? Like, you guys really suck and you guys are assholes, because they really are sucky assholes.
And even if it's not, like, even if he's not telling the truth.
Yeah. Like,
why call him out? Just, like, see what else he's gonna say.
Yeah,
that's
what he's saying. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Like, what good is it doing? And I think that's something that we can still learn today in, like, our timeline, like, our reality today is we need to be, like, nicer to each other, especially on the internet and stuff. There's no reason, just because you're behind a keyboard, that you should be able to talk to people, like, in such shitty ways. You wouldn't talk to them like that in real life. And if you would, I'm sure you don't have a lot of friends. So
don't troll people.
Yeah, it's just not nice. And we could have probably got a lot more information out of this guy, whether it's true or not. Like, he would have circled himself into, like, telling, like, he would have circled himself into, like, a hole, or buried himself in a hole, dug his own grave if he wasn't telling the truth eventually. But nobody would let him talk enough or not give him enough shit. He was always on the defense. So yeah, so we'll never find out what really, if John Titor was a real person or not, because nobody ever let him fucking talk. He was always defending himself. So anyways, we're gonna stop there, but we will be back for the part 3. So stay tuned, and don't forget to come back and listen for part 3, and don't forget to What? Don't forget to
share, like, and subscribe,
and email us at conspiraciesunlocked@gmail.com. Bye.
Okay, I just have to say my legs are falling asleep.
Crabs eat their babies.
Okay, thank you. My legs were, like, falling asleep, so I was, like, so fidgety at the end.
Okay, well, let's say bye on here. Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Thank you.
See you later.
Finish.
Yeah, but I have my nails.